Have you ever wondered what it would be like to own a real piece of the company you work for? I'm not just talking about your salary, but actually sharing in the company's success, its growth, its wins. Well, that's the whole idea behind one of the most powerful tools in Indian business today, employee stock options, or ESOPs. We're going to break down exactly how they work and how they're literally turning employees into owners. Just for a second, put yourself in a founder's shoes. You've poured everything into your company and you've hired this incredible team. But how do you get them to care about it the same way you do? How do you make them think beyond just the 9 to 5 and really feel like the company's future is their future? That right there, that's the ownership question. And it's a huge one.
And this is where ESOPs come into play. The best way to think about an ESOP is like a special time-locked coupon. It gives you the right to buy a piece of your company, its stock, at a price that's fixed today. And often, it's a really, really low price. The only catch? You've got to stick around for a while to earn the right to use that coupon.
And let's be clear, this is not just some quirky startup perk anymore. A KPMG survey found that a massive 68% of Indian companies are either already using ESOPs or are planning to. It's gone totally mainstream. Why? Because in today's battle for talent, a good salary just doesn't cut it. The best people, they want a piece of the action. So, first things first, let's dive into the why. What's the real reason companies are giving away slices of the pie? It really all boils down to one powerful idea: turning employees into true stakeholders. I mean, it's the ultimate win-win. For employees, it's a chance to build real wealth, something that can go way beyond a monthly paycheck. And for the company, well, it's a golden ticket for keeping their best people, for attracting new stars, and maybe most importantly, for building a culture where everybody, and I mean everybody, is pulling in the same direction because they all have skin in the game.
Okay, so let's say you get the good news. You've been offered ESOPs. What actually happens next? Let's walk through that whole journey, from the piece of paper you get at the beginning all the way to potentially cashing in.
So it all starts with something called the grant. This is the official offer from your company. Now, the key thing to get here is that you don't actually own any stock at this point. What you have is the right, the option, to buy a certain number of shares down the road at a price that's locked in today. Next up is vesting. Think of this as the earning period. It's the company's way of making sure you're in it for the long haul. You basically have to wait for a certain amount of time, and as you do, you gradually earn the right to actually use those options you were granted. And then we get to the really exciting part, the exercise. Once your options are vested, you can finally pull the trigger. You can officially buy your shares at that original, pre-agreed low price. And this is where the magic can happen, right? Because if the company's value has shot up, your shares could be worth way, way more than what you're paying for them. The second you exercise, boom, you're a shareholder. So let's just put that all together visually. The whole life cycle begins with the grant. That's the offer. Then you've got the vesting period. That's the waiting game. Once you're through that, you get to exercise your right to buy the shares. And that leads to the shares being allotted to you, making you an official owner, with the potential to sell them down the line. And here's something really important to know. Once you own those shares, they're not some kind of junior or second-class shares. They ranked pari passu, which is just a fancy legal way of saying they are on completely equal footing. Your shares have the exact same rights as the ones held by the founders or the big-shot investors. Now, ESOP is kind of an umbrella term. Turns out not all plans are created equal. Companies in India actually have a few different flavors to choose from depending on what they're trying to achieve. The three big ones you'll see are ESOs, ESPs, and RSUs. So ESOs is the classic one we've been talking about, the option to buy later. And ESPs is different. It's more like a special employee discount program where you buy shares, often through payroll deductions. And then you have RSUs, or restricted stock units. With these, you don't buy anything at all. The company just gives you the actual shares once you've completed your vesting period. And there's one more popular alternative called stock appreciation rights, or SARs. This one is really interesting. With SARs, you don't even have to buy the stock. Instead, the company just pays you the profit in cash, the difference between the stock's value now versus when you were granted the right. It's a simpler way to get the financial benefit without all the hassle of owning shares. All right, as you can probably guess, ESOPs aren't the Wild West. There are specific rules and regulations here in India that everyone has to follow. So let's quickly go over some of the fine print, simplified of course. This is probably the number one question people have. You've been working hard, your options are starting to vest, but then you decide it's time to move on. What in the world happens to all that potential value you've built up?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. Any options that haven't vested yet, poof, they're typically gone. You forfeit them. But, and this is a big but, for the options that you have already vested, you don't lose them immediately. The company has to give you a set period of time, a window, to decide if you want to exercise them and buy the shares before that right expires for good.
Here's another great question. Can a company just give you options today and then let you buy the shares tomorrow? Or is there a mandatory waiting period built into the system?
And the answer is yes, there absolutely is. SEBI, which is India's market regulator, mandates a minimum vesting period or cliff of 1 year from the day you are granted the options. So no matter what, you have to wait at least a year. It really reinforces that these are meant for long-term retention.
And one last crucial rule. A company's management can't just wake up one day and decide to create an ESOP plan. To be valid, it has to be approved by what's called a special resolution. That basically means a supermajority of the company's existing shareholders have to vote yes. It's a high bar, which shows just how serious a decision this is. So, where is all this headed? What does the future look like? Well, as India's startup scene continues to absolutely explode, the idea of employee ownership is becoming more and more central to the whole conversation.
And this isn't just a corporate trend. The government is paying close attention too. You see headlines like this one from the Economic Times all the time, talking about how policymakers are looking at ways to make ESOPs even easier and more attractive for startups, like by easing up on taxes. It's a clear signal that ESOPs are seen as a real engine for growth and innovation.
Which really leaves us with one big final question. As more of India's top talent starts demanding a real stake in the companies they're helping to build, are we heading towards a future where employee ownership isn't just a nice perk anymore, but the actual standard for how you build a great, successful company in India? Something to think about.